I smelled lavender on my pillow, but the sheets were cold stiff and not mine. That's when I realized I wasn't in my room. I was in the guest room, the one with the broken lamp and no lock. Sabrina had moved in. So had her husband. Into my bedroom. The room where I held my husband's hand as he died. The room I painted soft blue after the funeral. They said it was just for a while, then they changed the lock. Which city in the world are you listening from? If this story finds your heart, please subscribe. It helps more than you know. My name is Lorraine Morales. I'm 71. And until recently, I lived alone in a red brick house on Calle del Sol, El Paso. My husband and I bought it in 1983, back when the roof leaked every time it rained, and we had to use pots to catch the drops. I taught high school literature for over 30 years. I was known for two things: never missing a day and never losing my temper. When Richard passed, I stayed in the house, not because I had to, but because every wall, every window, every cracked tile in the kitchen reminded me of our life together, of the nights we slow danced to old soul music in the living room, of the lemon tree we planted after Elena was born. I wasn't lonely. I had my roses, my tea, my Sunday walks to the church 2 blocks down. And Elena, my granddaughter, who would sleep over twice a month just to hear my stories and eat peanut butter toast the way only I made it. Then Sabrina called. She said it like an afterthought. We're between places right now, just a couple of weeks. Sabrina, my only daughter, 42, a life coach on Instagram, always posting about crystals and boundaries. Her new husband, Kyle, was between brokerage firms. I didn't ask questions. Of course they could stay. Family is family. I gave them the guest room, washed the linens, stocked the fridge, even made arroz con leche the first night they arrived. Kyle said it was too sweet. Sabrina just stared at her phone. Still, I smiled. Because mothers make space. That's what we do. It started small, the kind of small that makes you question your memory. Sabrina stopped calling me mom, just Lorraine, like I was a tenant in my own home. Kyle never said much, but he watched everything with the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. On the third morning, Sabrina came into the kitchen rubbing her temples. "The guest bed is messing with my neck," she said, pouring oat milk into her smoothie. Kyle chimed in. "It's not just the bed. The room faces the street. The energy's all wrong." I stirred my tea slowly. "Well, it's only temporary," I said gently. "You'll adjust soon." Kyle looked at me, voice soft but firm. "What if we took the master for now, just until we get settled?" My hand stopped mid-stir. "That's my room," I said as evenly as I could. "I know, Lorraine," Kyle said, still smiling. "But you'd be more comfortable in the guest room. It's cozier, and you don't need all that space, right?" Sabrina didn't say a word. She scrolled her phone like she wasn't even in the room. I looked down at the steam rising from my cup. That room held everything I hadn't let go of: my wedding dress in the closet, Richard's cologne still faint in the top drawer, the creak in the left floorboard he used to fix every spring. "I'd rather keep it as is," I said. Kyle stood up. "No pressure," he said, grabbing his protein bar. "Just think about it." That night I found a lavender candle burning on my nightstand, one I didn't light. My extra pillows were gone, and the thermostat was set to 75. I always kept it at 68. I didn't say anything, but I didn't sleep either. The next afternoon I came home from the market with a bag of lemons and fresh tortillas. As I stepped into the hallway, I stopped cold. My bedroom door was locked. Not the old turnstile lock either. A new keypad had been installed. Sleek, black, flashing numbers I didn't recognize. My hands tightened around the grocery bag. I turned slowly, and that's when I saw them: 3 cardboard boxes stacked neatly beside the linen closet. Labeled in Sharpie, "Lorraine, Master Room." I opened one. My dress is folded without care. My wedding album spine bent. The quilt my mother hand-stitched jammed under a tangle of wire hangers. Kyle walked out of the kitchen sipping coffee from my favorite mug. "Oh hey," he said casually. "We moved some stuff around. Thought it'd make things easier for everyone." I blinked. "You changed the lock." He nodded like it was nothing. "Just for privacy. The master's got an ensuite and better airflow. You'll love the guest room. More, contained. Sabrina appeared behind him wearing my robe, the ivory one with blue trimming, a birthday gift from Richard. She adjusted the belt and looked me up and down. "Don't worry, Mom," she said finally, using the word again, but it sounded more like mockery. "You'll settle in. Change is good at your age." That night I lay awake in the guest room. The mattress was too firm, the lamp flickered, the closet door creaked every time I breathed. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the jar of dried lavender that used to sit by my bed. Kyle must have tossed it. Didn't go with their aesthetic. They took my room, but they were about to learn they hadn't taken me. A week passed. Elena hadn't stopped by once. I asked Sabrina one morning if she could stay the weekend. "She's busy," she said without looking up from her green juice. "Besides, Kyle thinks it's confusing her spending too much time in the guest room." The guest room. My room now, apparently. That Saturday, I made pozole, Elena's favorite, the kind with hominy tender pork lime and shredded cabbage on top. The broth simmered for hours, filling the house with the smell of garlic and chili. At 6:30, I set the table, just 3 plates. I waited. They didn't come down. At 7:15, I heard laughter upstairs. Then the door closed. They ate in the master again. I sat alone at the kitchen table. I bought with my first teacher's paycheck. The steam from the pozole curled into the silence like a question with no answer. Later that night, I walked past the hallway closet. Something made me pause. Inside, my photo albums were stacked beneath a bag of wigs. The handprint Elena made in kindergarten was folded under a yoga mat. And on the top shelf, I saw a folder, pink, unzipped, stuffed with papers. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside, a printout bubbled, "Quit claim deed, draft." And next to it, a note from Kyle's email to Sabrina. If we frame it as estate planning, she might sign without reading. My hands shook. I pressed the folder back in place and closed the door gently. I didn't say anything that night, not a word. But something inside me settled, not in defeat and decision. The next morning I left before sunrise, didn't make breakfast, didn't leave a note. I walked 2 blocks to the El Paso Public Library. It was quiet, just the way I needed. I sat at the far table in the back, the one near the window that still had a view of the mountains. And I dialed Monica Reeves. She answered on the 3rd ring. Lorraine, her voice hadn't changed in years, still calm, still sharp. "I need to talk," I said. She didn't ask why. Des Ostent press. She just said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the locked door, the missing photos, the robe, the note. She let me finish, then said, "You still have the deed, right?" "I do," I whispered. "My name, no one else's." She was quiet for a beat, then replied, "Then we have options." I stared out the window at the rising sun. "I want it done quietly," I said. "No drama, no warning." Monica didn't hesitate. "I'll run comps in the area, and we'll start the paperwork for a private sale. I'll handle everything." That afternoon, I walked home with a bag of lemons, the same kind I used to make tea for Elena. But this time, I wasn't bringing comfort. I was bringing clarity. I stopped cooking. That was the first shift. No breakfast waiting when they came downstairs. No pozole simmering in the pot. Just silence and toast crumbs on a cold plate. Kyle didn't notice. Sabrina did. She glanced up from her ring light one morning and said, "I guess retirement finally kicked in." Then laughed, like I wasn't standing right there. I let her laugh. Let them think I'd shriveled into routine, that I was done. But I wasn't resting. I was watching. Kyle left contracts on the dining table, like I couldn't read. Sabrina wandered barefoot across my hardwood floors, talking to her phone about manifestation and ancestral healing, while drinking rosé at 11 a.m. They filled my house with noise, but none of it felt like home. Elena stopped showing up altogether. I knew she wanted to, but she was 13. She didn't have keys. She didn't have power. But I did. Every night I packed, Not like they did with plastic bins and loud intentions. No, I folded things slowly. My wedding shawl, Richard's handkerchief, 3 photo frames, and my crochet needles. I placed the deed in a manila envelope. Next to it, I tucked in Monica's business card and the buyer's offer, full cash, no contingencies. We moved fast. She brought comps within 3 days. We had a buyer in Wab, an older couple from Las Cruces. They loved the roses, didn't mind the outdated tile. Can they close fast? I asked. Monica nodded. 10 days, maybe less. I want the notice delivered on a Sunday, I said. Mid-morning. She tilted her head. You sure? I want them dressed. I want her lashes on. I want him holding that damn mimosa when it hits. Monica didn't flinch. I'll book the deputy. The rest of the week passed like fog. Sabrina kept calling the master bedroom our sanctuary. Kyle talked about turning the guest room into a nursery. They had no idea. One evening, Kyle saw me wiping down the kitchen counter and asked, "You tidying up for company?" I smiled softly, something like that. On Saturday night, I ironed my church blouse, pressed every crease, polished the silver locket Richard gave me on our 20th anniversary. I slept in my cold little guest bed, but my heart was warm, ready. Sunday morning came. The sun was bold, the kind that burns through curtains. I made tea, sat by the kitchen window, and waited. At 10:07 there was a knock, firm, measured, legal, not the kind of knock you ignore. Kyle opened the door barefoot, holding a half-empty mimosa. Monica stood there, heels on brick. Beside her, a deputy with mirrored sunglasses and a brown folder. "This property has been legally sold," she said. "You have 30 days to vacate. Notice has been filed with the county. Formal letter to follow." Sabrina came rushing from the hallway in silk and confusion. "What is this?" she snapped. Kyle flipped through the pages, his face paling with each line. "You sold the house," he whispered, staring at me like I was a stranger. I took another sip of tea. "That's right. You can't do this," he barked. "We live here." "No," I said calmly. "You stayed here. This is my home, and now it belongs to someone else." Sabrina's voice cracked. "You're throwing your own daughter out. You boxed up my life, Sabrina. You wore my robe. You locked me out of my own bedroom and called it love." Kyle growled. "We were building a future." I stood. "Then build it somewhere else." The deputy stepped forward. "You have 30 days. No one moved. Even the air felt stunned. I set my teacup down, turned to Monica, and smiled. She nodded once. We walked out to the garden. The lavender was blooming. "They thought I was done," I said. "They forgot I'm still the one with the deed." After they closed the door, I didn't follow, didn't offer comfort, didn't explain. I sat in the backyard, under the orange tree Richard planted in '87. The wind was dry, Texas wind. It scraped against the fence and pulled petals from the roses, like they too were tired of pretending. From the kitchen window, I heard raised voices. Sabrina's tone turned frantic. Kyle's more clipped, calculating. I imagined them flipping through the notice, looking for loopholes, but Monica didn't leave any. Later that evening, I walked through the house one last time, not to say goodbye, but to take inventory of what mattered. The hallway mirror where Elena used to make faces, the scuffed door frame where I marked her height in pencil, the chipped corner of the dining table where Richard dropped his keys every single day for 31 years. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Upstairs, the light from the master bedroom spilled through the crack beneath the door. I didn't peek in. I didn't need to. That room was already gone to me. I spent the night packing 2 final boxes, one for the condo, my next chapter, and one for the church donation bin. Some things were never meant to be dragged into the future. The next morning, Sabrina avoided me. Kyle stayed on the phone all day. At one point, I heard him say, "She tricked us. She had this planned." And he was right. I did. I had to. Because sometimes the only way to reclaim peace is to sign your name, seal an envelope, and walk into your future while others are still arguing over your past. Monday morning, the house was quieter than I'd ever heard it. No music, no laughter, no sound of Kyle stomping down the stairs in those loud leather shoes. I was sipping chamomile in the kitchen when Sabrina came in. Her hair was undone, dark circles beneath her eyes. She looked 10 years older. "Mom," she said softly, "can we talk?" I didn't move, just looked at her over the rim of my teacup. "We didn't mean for it to go like this," she said, voice shaking. "We were just trying to build something new," Kyle thought. I raised a hand. "Don't blame Kyle. You made your choices. And so did I." She swallowed hard. "Where are we supposed to go?" I stood and walked to the sink. The morning light touched the glass just right, soft and gold. "You're resourceful," I said. "You'll figure it out, like I had to." Kyle appeared behind her, jaw tight. "You blindsided us," he snapped. "You didn't even give us a chance to stay." I turned. "You changed the locks on me, Kyle. You wore my life like it was a costume. This house was built with sacrifice, not entitlement." His fist clenched, but he said nothing. Sabrina stepped forward. Tears welled in her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "This is all we have." I looked her in the eyes. My daughter, once so small, she fit in the crook of my arm. Now a stranger who called me Lorraine and wore my memories like borrowed clothes. "You treated me like a relic," I said, "like I'd already died." "I'm sorry," she choked. "I didn't know how to fix it." I nodded. "I know. But this isn't your house anymore. It's not mine, or son. It's free." I picked up my handbag, slipped on my sweater. As I walked toward the front door, I paused by the hallway wall. My fingers found the faint pencil marks, Elena's growth chart still visible, if you knew where to look. I smiled, not at them, at what I had survived. At the threshold, Sabrina called out, "Will we ever see you again?" I didn't turn around. I simply said, "If you ever do, you'll have to knock." My new place isn't big, but it's mine. 1 bedroom, clean kitchen, a little balcony where I planted a pot of lavender. It's already blooming. Elena found me 2 weeks later. She showed up at church, quiet, nervous, holding a tote bag full of books. "Grandma," she whispered, "can I still come over?" I pulled her into my arms. "Baby," I said, "you never even left." That night we made tea and grilled cheese. She helped me hang fairy lights across the balcony. We laughed, we cried, we started over. And as she drifted to sleep on my couch, I looked out at the stars and whispered to the quiet, "No one gets to lock me away again. Not in a room, not in a life." Peace doesn't need permission. It just needs a door you close behind you on your terms. If you enjoyed this story, comment, too, below.